really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
Woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Today, that Bryson Gray is looking for somebody to do a non-hetero voice on one of his songs, and he can't find anybody. I thought about volunteering, but
a non-hetero voice.
Yeah, I didn't want my first appearance on a rap song to be me doing a voice like that.
Gay face.
Eric Butler.
Gay.
That's right.
Gay voice.
Andrew says TV.com, uopod.com. Thank you for watching, subscribing, please, on YouTube. Subscribe on Getter. And if you're on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts, please rate this, bookmark it, and share it. Do all that wonderful stuff that we know and love you like to do. That sentence didn't make sense. Cockle doodly doodly doo, man. I've been showing that video to people all week. Rastafarian.
Still on that one, huh? You were. Still
I am. Rastafarian yoga teacher. The more you watch it, the creepier the video gets. I just want to put it that way. The old man like stretching with the kids and everything. But Eric brought to my attention today that there's a transgender father, quote unquote, and all that. I don't know what's what, that got pregnant after a one-night stand during their transition. Let's go ahead and read that on your favorite podcast on Getter. Shout out to Getter. Trans dad got pregnant after one-night stand during transition. Do we know where this was, Eric? What, Seattle? It turns out, of course. Should I not be surprised by that?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to
36-year-old trans dad from Seattle who identifies as non-binary? How are you trans if you're not a gender?
It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any.
If you're not identifying with any gender, then how are you transitioning between genders? And then there's the old, like, if you're non-binary, then you're admitting that there's a binary choice, which is... Anyways, and Queer has been documenting how they, quote, took advantage of the body organs I was born with to give birth after a one-night stand during their medical transition. So on one hand, you don't want to be that, but they admittedly call it taking advantage of the organs I was born with. It's just all it is. It's not giving birth. Danny Wakefield came out as trans masculine. Why do these people even type this? See, when I write this stuff, I make sure it's quoted as from somewhere or allegedly or identifies as, because I'm not just going to go out here and be what about trans masculine's a real thing.
So-called trans masculine.
It's a literary technique. A person assigned female at birth who identifies with masculinity, which many women who don't have mental issues do, went on testosterone treatment for 9 years and had a double mastectomy in Florida during the transition. Although identify as trans masculine. Go ahead.
Just notice they have to make sure it's Florida, right? Because Florida is obviously, a hot bed for this stuff, right? With the quote unquote "don't say gay" bill and all that stuff. So they want to make sure that it's Florida, so that way they can blame you for being mean and nasty, and somebody's gonna harm themselves because they weren't allowed to do this in Florida. I'm just saying.
It's true. Although I identify as trans masculine rather than male, people often read me as a cisgender gay man. So I'm aware that it does make me more visible to live my identity as a trans masculine person. So you're transgender, but you're actually only trans masculine, but you're also non-binary and queer. But people think you're a gay man. I don't know what I thought cisgender. Okay, so people think you're a regular gay guy. I don't know. It doesn't.
Well,
make sense.
Chaos is the point. They want you to be confused and just obey whatever it is this weirdo saying. But I think at one point they mentioned that it was a grinder date. So
I think we'll get to that maybe.
Okay, all right. You want to keep reading it? It doesn't make sense because even if you're on a one-night stand, you're on Grindr, the guy that she was on a date with is not really gay, or
Wakefield found out that they were pregnant, not she was, during a bout with COVID-19 after a one-night stand with an unnamed man. So this person's going out giving people COVID and getting pregnant during it. Wilder, whose gender Wakefield has not yet identified, so a man. That's what I don't. We're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to do a classic unauthorized opinion move here and look into this writer. I've known for my entire life that I've wanted children, and I knew before I transitioned that I want to carry at least one child. What a weird way to say it. And this is the hot guy.
Now, do we think? Look, do we really think that that's going to be great for the kid? Right? Like, your mom is on all these weird
Think that.
hormones and stuff. I'm not a doctor, but
Often when people are transitioning, they might freeze their eggs. I also thought about how I would feed my baby when I had that double mastectomy. Those small decisions had to be made. Small decisions. And I don't regret the one bit. Oh, I just cut off my boobs. It's a small decision. It wasn't a small decision when Angelina Jolie did that to lessen the probability that she'd get breast cancer. She did the whole gene research thing where they research what kind of diseases you're prone to with your bloodline, and then she's like, I'm getting a double mastectomy. That's apparently, it's just a small decision to get this massive life-changing
I don't even.
just wanted to compare
that.
Well, I just wanted to compare like the reasoning somebody has, like avoid cancer. Oh, it's just a small decision to whether or not I can breastfeed in the future, I don't think I would be here with Wilder. I like how they always go with one names. If I hadn't taken care of myself and honored my identity back then. Or you would just be a guy and a girl. Wakefield detailed what it'd be like being pregnant during the pandemic, which kept them home instead of going in public on a regular basis, which would have been quite different. Despite the sickness, it was the most beautiful experience I've ever had. I've fallen in love with my body in ways that I've never experienced before. It's just so weird. And Eric, I've been watching a lot of TikTok cringe lately, and sit through one TikTok compilation, and I noticed I also do this a lot. Sit through one TikTok compilation and tell me there isn't like a huge mental health problem in the United States right now, or Canada, or England, or Australia. But you get people who are morbidly obese thinking it's hilarious that they're doing like food challenges and don't get like why it's people are watching. They think it's because like they're participating in some fun challenge. Yay. Not because I'm disturbing looking. Or you have like transgender people. You have people that are explaining their gender identity and pronouns to people and acting like they don't care if you say it or not. That's why they're making the video. And you're watching all these videos and you're like, why are these people doing this? Girls talking about like having sex and everything. And it's just stuff that you wouldn't normally brag about. And you're watching all these videos. And I start to realize that the most normal people on TikTok are the people that are toothless, former meth addicts, or people who are vamp emo cringe type people who and like losers who are just like, mouthing the words from movies that I've never seen and like doing it as a way to flirt back and forth. Those are the most normal people on TikTok. On TikTok. The vast majority of people are just so far gone from like what they think being normal is that they just put on anything that they can onto TikTok and hope that somehow people reach out to them and love them in some sort of way. And it's so paper thin, the veil that these people are wearing when they stick a camera in front of their face and they have like no teeth and they're just being like acting like they're so hot. Or one I watched today was, and I might be addicted to this. One I watched today was this super obese woman, and I have no problem if you're not in shape or you're a little fat. But this woman's like 400 pounds. She's doing some, I guess, a challenge where you chug a bottle of Sprite or 7-Up, and she can't do it, and she's burping and all this weird stuff. And it's like she thinks this is funny or people want to see this because she's participating in this challenge. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there being like, this is disgusting. And the only reason other people do it is because it's not something you're supposed to normally do. But the people who are watching you do this they actually know that you're chugging 2 liters or 2 gallons of Pepsi on a daily basis. And this is just disgusting. So like, it's not out of the ordinary for someone to be doing this. This is the mindset is what I'm trying to say of these people making these videos. Literally anything goes to get attention. And again, I don't know how we got here.
Well, I don't look at TikTok. I assume it's not that much right. Instagram.
I'm watching it
obviously
on
tried to-
YouTube in my defense.
Okay. Well, obviously, it's a very popular format, right? I think YouTube and Instagram both now obviously have to compete with TikTok, and so I don't know what's normal, quote unquote, normal on the platform. I know a whole bunch of, that's where. Right. Remember, we had the SoundCloud era of rap, and now it's kind of like the TikTok era, like where the songs are like 30 seconds to a minute long and they go crazy viral. But I guess we got here because we're talking about the Transformers and how everything's nobody's normal on there, and it begs the question, right? We see these articles, it seems like every month or two there's an article. There was one just the other day, or it was a tweet, I guess, that showed, oh well, these Chinese TikTok employees have press a button and make any video go viral. Did you see that? I posted it onto my story a couple days ago.
No, I didn't, but that makes sense.
So they can. I mean, does this look, without getting too conspiratorial? But of course, I mean, really, nothing is off the table. Nothing's conspiratorial at this point in time. But it does beg the question, right? I think it's fair to say that we're not seeing the weirdo, like the most bizarre. Well, you think they're trolling, right? You think it can't even be real, but then I guess it is real. Do those type of videos that go viral here go viral in China? Are they going viral with how to solve a complex math problem, right? That's what they're saying, is that they're training kids in China to go viral by being smart. Over here, they're doing, remember the milk crate challenge? People would get millions of views, and then their knee would pop out the skin, falling down on those crates. Remember that? So
yes,
I don't know how this is happening, but the idea. Okay, this story though is just, the levels of this are just so insane, right? So they met on a one night stand during a transition, that this woman was turning into a man, and the man, and I thought, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought there was something about a grinder date. So was the guy that this person got pregnant by supposedly gay, but then was just so desperate for any attention that he's not gay, or he's still gay because this guy might have had this lady man or she-male thing, might have had a beard at the time, but was still, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But this connects to what we were talking about last week, about how they basically just think everything's a movie, so it's just make believe, and whatever we say, whatever weirdo terms, transmasculine, I don't believe it, and they throw it out there like it's all just completely normal, to where it's there's not even a question about it, right? Like they just throw it out there, and you're supposed to understand it from the very beginning. You know what I mean? It's very like,
I don't see grinder in there.
I feel like maybe did I read that on the Daily Mail or something? Okay, maybe I'm mistaken. I thought somewhere it said, it might be, dude. I swear that might have been a stealth edit. Does it say there's been any?
I didn't see the word grinder in there. But what I want to mention there is the main person here, the woman who's now a guy or whatever, is a recovering addict. It says. Let me go back to that for a second. And it sounds mean, but at some point you just got to start pointing out the similarities in these stories. And it's like kind of when you watch Intervention, you're just like waiting for them to tell you what happened to them when they were younger, which caused them to become a heroin addict. And it's usually they were molested, or their parents were drug addicts and their parents would buy them stuff, or somebody died that was close to them, something like that. And you see this in these situations as well. A recovering addict has amassed over 1 million followers on social media, documenting how they're actually a man who's pregnant and everything. Like, these are the reasons. Like, it starts with this addiction problem, then it moves to a social media addiction, and then it moves to an attention thing. And you can say, and you can make this argument that you were born in the wrong body, but science has yet to prove that that's an actual thing, and not just a person who has a lot going on inside these four walls that's called their head, and most likely has around 3
and they love the
comorbidities such as other mental health problems. I'm bringing COVID into this, of course, but that's how it works. And like, there's no thing where it's like you can prove that you're actually a male in a female's body other than with your feelings. And when you argue with something based on your feelings, which is supposed to be from a scientific standpoint, you could say whatever you want. If mathematics relied on how I felt like the answer should be, then I could say whatever I want. I can say 96 plus 69 equals you and me, Eric. But if it's relying on emotions, then that answer could be whatever I want. And if it doesn't have to be an actual mathematical equation here. So if you don't have to have an explanation of like, we can identify this as a man's brain and this is actually a female's body, that doesn't have to exist. The closest they get is don't forget about the asexual people and the agendered people, which is less than a 1,000th of a percentage. And then they use that to justify the rule of like, see, other people have cut off their arms. Let me do it too.
But can we just go back to the addiction thing quick? Can you hear me? It looks like I might be frozen
Yes,
again.
can.
They love the addiction, right? Like that's why it all goes hand in hand. I just sent you this. This is, I don't know if this is the same thing or different thing, but Grinder one night stand. I think this is maybe the story I read, and now I'm confusing it with a different one, perhaps. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Bringing it up.
Gender man gives birth after Grinder one night stand. But anyways, they love the addiction aspect. That's one video we saw that I think I referenced last week from Savannah Hernandez in San Francisco, ready and willing and able, and New York, actually, to do paraphernalia, little strips of foil and little water tubes and syringes and all sort of stuff. But as soon as you ask, well, I want to kick the habit, can you point me to the direction of like a clinic that will help me get rid of this stuff? And they don't know. They don't want to answer that question. They want you to keep using it. It results in things like this. You know what I mean? So they still have full control, whether you're an addict, whether you need the Narcan, whether you turn into one of these weirdo people, you're going to be on one of their pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life, which when you're doing this stuff to your body, I assume would shorten the lifespan. But whatever, it's another 20 or 40 years. You're going to need this stuff every single day of your, either way, that establishment still wins. And
I think go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I'm realizing now that this is a completely different story, which almost makes this worse.
I'm starting to think that the New York Post needs a little bit more dignity in what they choose. Like, I get the game where it's like, do anything that gets you clicked. Daily Mail does that as well. Hence why, like, you're seeing parenting with trans people and Tom Brady on the same page. Daily Mail does this too. But, like, we're just saying, like, sharing their pregnancy journey after getting knocked up from a Grinder one night stand. Like, is that really news? Like, is that, like, even in the grand scheme of like the culture war, is that really something that they think that the person who's writing about this, like, you don't have to pitch this or you don't have to assign this. I can't get to this. They don't let you get to the reporter's page. It looks like is what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, that's weird. The links don't go to the person's page. But,
so what you're saying economy that we live in, like this is even below that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am saying that. We got a super chat here. Let's take a look at that. Columbus says, just one question, Mr. Butler. No one mentioned Grinder until you did.
It's because I was thinking of this story.
Yeah.
It's because I was thinking of a different story.
You're cutting in and out here. Okay. Oh, there it goes. You're back, I think. Your connection was a little shoddy there for a second, I think. But let's go to this other title track that we have here. About how Facebook and Instagram are going to allow you to show nudity as long as you're transgender or non-binary. This is an interesting one that's a little bit confusing for several reasons. So what's going on here is Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, the Zuck's company, they outsource everything. And my belief in that is because Zuckerberg doesn't actually want to be involved in this stuff anymore. Like, he's done his time as an operative for the deep state and all these people with the election and the Hunter Biden story squashing. And when he was on Joe Rogan, I really felt like he was saying that he doesn't want to be involved in this stuff anymore. Everything's third party, the fact checking, and also the decision making on policies, it turns out. So they have a policy board that consists of 5 members, or at least 5 members in that current instance. And I'll bring it up for you here. Parent company has a Supreme Court for an oversight board. And what they do is they make the decisions for Meta, for Instagram and Facebook. And what happened is 2 posts from 2 different sets of people were flagged for nudity because they were transgender people. So it turns out the policy for Facebook and Instagram for nudity is it's allowed only if it's involved in like breast cancer surgery, or in some cases a mastectomy, as we were talking about a double mastectomy, that sort of stuff. So they sort of said, well, it seems to me that's discriminatory, these policies, because only if a trans person's involved in surgery are they allowed to show themselves like afterwards. So what this oversight board did was they went through this complex, I think it was 11-page document, where they outlined all the problems with this meta policy, and they determined that the reason why things need to change, they need to change their policy to allow these people to show their bare chest, non-binary and transgender people, is because they don't technically fall under the rules. So the rules that exist for Meta already are saying a woman can't show her breasts unless she's, involved in surgery, or breastfeeding is the other thing. But since these people don't identify as women, therefore they don't fall under the same rule set as, actual women. So these aren't women's breasts you're seeing. They're a person who doesn't identify as a woman, therefore it's okay. And I'll find the quote here for you because it's insane. And first of all, they say, well, of course, we welcome the board's decision in this case. A spokesperson says, the board found that overall Meta's policies on nudity result in greater barriers to expression for women, trans, and gender non-binary people on platforms. Who knew that nudity itself was an expression? I didn't know that you need to share on social media, as if there aren't enough websites for that. Everything has to be porn, I guess. But in a nearly 10,000 word post by the oversight board, an in-depth analysis was given of Meta's policies as to how they unfairly treat those who identify as transgender and non-binary. Analyzing the platform's community standards, the board notes, and this is the key part here, the board notes that the standards refer to a woman's uncovered breasts. Given that the subjects in recent photos identify as non-binary and transgender, the breasts depicted belong to individuals who do not identify as women, and as such are not subject to the rule. So their argument that took them 10,000 words to bring up here is that transgender people and non-binary people aren't women, or they don't identify as women anymore, so they should be allowed to share nude images because the rules only apply to women. So on one hand, you have people saying, I'm identifying as a certain gender, therefore you must respect it and believe it and agree with it. But when the rules come down and it says, hey, you're women and you fall under this category, no, I'm not a woman anymore. I'm actually non-binary or a man now. So these don't count as women's breasts. So this means, of course, there's going to be penises on Instagram and Facebook, and it's going to be disgusting. And you're going to be like, why is my teenage kid doing this? Or why is, let's throw Lewis Brackpool, my friend from England, under the bus. He's saying, why am I seeing penises? And he's going to report this to Instagram or to Meta or whoever. And they're going to say, sorry, dude, this person doesn't identify as a man. So that's not a man's penis you're looking at. That's a trans masculine demisexual vamp god that you're looking at. And this is the world we're living in now. So those are the crazy rules that are happening over at Meta's, advisory board, which is 5 people, and they need 3 people to vote for it. And I like how they're using this acronym LGBTQI plus, which we're seeing updated even more. And they're saying they're constantly evaluating their policies to make their platforms even better, of course. But how could they get much better when you're seeing dongs on it, I guess, right? The next thing that we're going to get to, if Eric comes back ever, I don't know. I don't know where he went. Ping him on Instagram or something. I was going to say send him pictures of you know what, but don't do that. Don't send Eric pictures of your penis. Or do. I don't care. But I'm not responsible for it. You're your own person, right? So Sheila Jackson Lee, I believe is her name. she's putting in a bill, and she's from Texas, a congresswoman in Texas. She's putting out this bill that she's hoping will get passed, and it's for hate speech. So it's against the First Amendment, so I don't think that'll go through for that reason. But what she's saying is that anyone who engages in something called white supremacy inspired hate crime should go to jail, or well, the wordage they use like severe penalties. The problem with that is the way they define this, of course, which is not at all. So in this bill, they're talking about how to prevent white supremacist hate crimes. And I guess on some level, you can say that's a good idea. Nobody wants that, even though it's not as prevalent as they say. But they're saying that you can commit conspiracy to commit a white supremacist hate crime. And the ways that people can go about this, which would make them, break the law, would be somebody posting things that they disagree with. So one of the things they said was, of course, the great replacement theory, which is a thing that they admit that they're doing, which is, ushering in a large amount of immigrants, both legally and illegally, to replace the native population, no matter the race of the person, the black, the white, and the Native American people all getting replaced by voters. And that's what they're referring to there. You talk about that, and then you can be guilty of conspiracy to commit white supremacist crime. Now, you may be asking now, how is that conspiracy to commit a crime if you don't commit a crime, right? Well, they thought of this one. So hold your hats on that one, Sally and Jim. Those are, everybody's got a Sally and Jim in their life in 1996, I think. But so the way that they convict you of that crime of just talking about it online, they're saying that it's a crime if you say something that could be misconstrued by somebody who would then possibly go and commit a crime. So if you're just Joe Blow or Sally Ann Struthers, which I think is a real person, and you go on Facebook and you start talking about some theory that this Democrat congresswoman disagrees with, you might think, well, I'm just talking. This is my First Amendment right to just talk. They're saying no. If you're saying something that we determine to be words that somebody could use to fuel their hate, then we're going to arrest you for it. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. The bill states that a person is engaging in white supremacist inspired hate crimes when the white supremacist ideology is involved in the planning or is a precursor to an act itself. This is where the bill seeks to criminalize hate speech and social media posts pertaining to vilifying non-white people or groups. So they're saying on one hand, they're trying to say, hate speech towards people that are non-white, this is now a crime, which of course isn't a crime in the United States. As long as you're not committing some other crime, you can say, I hate this person. It might not be allowed on a specific social media platform, but you can say, I hate these people no matter what. And I think we just got Eric back here. Eric, we're talking about this, the woman's hate speech bill here. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. You sound a little bit high pitched, but that might just be your rage.
Yeah, dude, technical difficulties. Okay.
So we're just reading what is a conspiracy to engage in white supremacy here. Between two or more persons, when it's considered a white supremacist inspired hate crime between two or more persons when at least one of the people published material advancing white supremacy, white supremacist ideology, antagonism based on replacement theory, or hate speech that vilifies or otherwise directed against non-white person group, etc. So simply for publishing material that they deem as advancing white supremacy or white supremacist ideology, you have committed conspiracy to engage in white supremacy inspired hate crime. Very confusing, very wordy, Eric. But what they're saying here is if you post something that they disagree with, that they determine to be white supremacist hate speech, that in itself is a crime no matter what happens, because you're potentially, inspiring somebody to commit a hate crime. Understand, Whitey?
Is this more confusing than a couple of transform and transition? And I understand that I had confused the two stories, which only makes okay. So, is this any more confusing than that? I don't think so. They tried this already before. This is not that different from the Ministry of Truth. You can, anything you say, they clearly have a monopoly that can change day to day We saw that, of course, with the Jumanji. That's funny. Sheila Jackson Lee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Anyways, it was
That's
all
racist.
It was all about woman's was right. Famously, that was in the news cycle for like a month. The lady couldn't say what a woman was, and then Dobbs decision, whatever Supreme Court thing, and now all of a sudden it's a woman's right to choose. So they have them, and this is another step in they just want to ban you, they want to cancel you, and now this is the next step after that, right? So after
Well, here's this part. Well, here's this part. The bill is defined this as material. The bill defines this as material, which is, quote, published on a social media platform or by other means. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger here for viewers on iPads specifically. By other means or publication with this likelihood that it would be viewed by persons who are predisposed to engaging in any action in furtherance of white supremacy inspired hate crime, or who are susceptible to being encouraged to engage in the furthest of white supremacy. So if we suspect that a person may be inspired or encouraged by your words, therefore you are committing a crime, and probably that person too. They also want to create a database to maintain white supremacy inspired hate crimes. So you'll go on the hate speech list. And it's crazy. They want to amend the Hate Crime Prevention Act to include like their dogma, their religious text, saying now hate crimes motivated by white supremacy have been increasing in frequency and intensity. Like, I don't understand how you can write that into a bill and not automatically date it. It's just like for the rest of time, you're just going to be reading this and going to be like, oh, this must be true currently. Heinous and virulent crimes, blah, 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 blatant bigotry, which of course is going to be a crime. So all this stuff is bad, of course. That's the obvious part. But they want to put you in a position where they can be like, what? So you're against condemning white supremacist hate crimes? And of course, nobody's going to be forward and forthcoming about their love for white supremacist hate crimes. The 1,000% of people who like that, which are probably exist in an attic somewhere and I don't know, the show Blacklist, but they're going to dress it up as this whole thing and then say we're stamping out white supremacy and the crimes that are caused by it. But in actuality, in actual reality, this person who's sitting on the internet in, let's say, I don't know, Wyoming, I don't know, someplace, typing stuff, and they say, you know what, and this could be a black person, and they're saying, you know what, it seems like they're bringing in a lot of immigrants from El Salvador into my city, and they have different views than me, and they just got here, and they're going to have all these votes if they naturalize them in. And all of a sudden, the demographics of our voting block is going to completely change. And this could be a black guy or a Spanish guy or a Chinese guy saying this, and they're going to say, you know what? You're talking about the replacement theory. That's a crime. And on top of that, you're talking about stuff that could be misconstrued by somebody who is predisposed to committing hate crimes, which is probably a white person in this instance. And not only are you guilty of that, you're also guilty of, of saying this, of promoting it, of inspiring somebody. So all of a sudden you're hit with like 4 federal crimes about white supremacist terrorist acts. And all you did was talk about something that's literally happening in your neighborhood, no matter what race you are, because you could be talking about South Koreans that overstay their visa. You could be talking about the Sikh guys that are jumping the border that I watched on Danny Mullen's video this morning. 4 guys in turbans crossing over in Arizona. Shout out Jorge Ventura, Danny Mullen, and Leo Tavio there. And you could be typing about this, and then, what's her face, Sheila Jackson Lee, the congresswoman, saying that you're inspiring terrorism.
Yeah, well, again, you're always taking as kind of like as though they actually are genuine, right? It's obviously kind of I forget what you were saying last week. Oh, about the air filter thing. It's like air filter. It's not
right.
It's about Rona fear mongering, and this is just about, we can debate whether hate crimes even really exist, right? I think up for debate, but even if they did, it's obviously been all completely watered down by these. And on top of that, I think you also just in past filming or whatever, and it's like every time we see one of these hate crimes, whether it's this who I think is facing some misdemeanor charges for spraying the woman, or stop, or even crimes against our even crime, if you can say it when we get banned, but things that are happening in Brooklyn, right? Crimes that are always called like hate crimes. They keep happening in like these weird blue left news about the hate crime that just happened in Wyoming. They keep happening in the places that keep. So you can like throw it away and say there's some guys over in Wyoming in the middle of nowhere line, but when it comes down to the actual crimes, quote unquote crimes, and the knuckle stuff, it's always in California, New York, maybe Chicago, Seattle. You know what I mean? Like, why is it those places that keep having the problems with the hatred?
You brought up the air conditioning stuff, and I would take this time to apologize and take a small L on that. I was mostly wrong, surprisingly, about how air conditioning units work. And I'm going to say mostly wrong because I think I was 40% right based on my research. The woman was still completely wrong. It's still a completely stupid idea of her to, suck in air from outside. So what I got wrong, Eric, is that while there is a intake system for outside air, what that unit outside is actually doing is it's expelling hot air. So the fan is expelling hot air that gets dispelled from the house. So what's happening inside your house is it's actually taking existing air, putting it over cooling rods, which are cooled by Freon, of course, which is used in everything, and then expelling the hot, stale air that's already in your house out through that exhaust fan. So I'm taking the L on that one, but only 60% because I'm mostly wrong. But I am right that there is still intake coming in from out there. But it doesn't travel through, the fan isn't pulling it in. The fan is actually, that unit is expelling it out. And the air that's coming through the ducts is, yes, still getting filtered. That's where I'm still right about that. It's still getting filtered through these filters. And of course, there's still air coming in from outside. But this fan isn't doing what I thought it was doing, Eric. And I guess some people who are HVAC and AC experts corrected me on this. And I'm pretty butthurt about it. I did the whole research and be like, no, I'm still right. But at some point, you have to admit your loss and that I'm not an air conditioning expert. But I still am holding on to gravely by the sweaty palm of my hand that this woman's still, much dumber than I am because she taped 3 things to a fan and thinks that that's helping her air. But actually, and obviously, there's still these filters filtering the air through your home. So shout out to those people who corrected me. I apologize. Next time, I won't be so violently sure that I know exactly how air conditioning systems work. But now I guess I know.
Well, I mean, I didn't really care either way. My bone to pick with that video. I mean, different direction. I don't know how any of that stuff works. I never pretended to. I'm just saying, my entire compost posted this with the caption, "COVID is still here, so you need to clean the air in your own house because we can't have you not being afraid." Now that was the bone pick I had with the video. So we weren't seeing eye to eye on that to begin the video. And the Washington compost is absolute garbage. And they're still, and I mean, obviously after Jimmy Fallon, I always get them confused. Fallon. And they're weird. I mean, that was a little strange, right? It was. Fallon does a little song and dance about the new variant, and then 3 extends an emergency declaration. Like, are those related at all? I mean, come on, guys. Like, this is getting absolutely ridiculous. But I don't care about the air conditioner story. My point is, it's a fear mongering tactic with it that I did. And now, I mean, congrats on holding that L, I guess.
Thank you. I can't be one of those guys who's just like, no. And I could delete it. Maybe we will in the future to save my own save my own dignity there. Somebody in the chat's talking about air conditioning. I've already taken the L. I don't want to. It's air conditioning doesn't bring any fresh air or exhaust. Okay, that's great. I don't care. The root of poverty, however, is white supremacy. Philadelphia faith leaders advocate for reparations. So they have this thing in Philadelphia, which is called some sort. And there's a fancy sign of a guy. Reparations Now. They have a board, an action thing. What's it called? I'll scroll down here and find out what they really called it. Commission on Faith-Based and Interfaith Affairs in Philadelphia. So this was
that sounds
assigned
like
by
a
the mayor.
scam.
Of course it is. So what they do, of course, they have money allocated to having these programs done. They bring in all these different congregations, and we all know religious congregations have never been crooked in the history of time. And what they did is they had a program recently where they brought in 15 different congregations, around 100 people, and they did a course that included a thing called Rise Up for Reparations, which is an ongoing series. I found they had an event last June 2022 where they talked about having an event for this, where they basically talk about why reparations is important and how to get it from their legislatures. So this is quote from a person who was at the event. Several opportunities were given to create reparation action plans. And she's a reverend, of course. Naomi Washington Leapart is her name. She's a director for faith-based and interfaith affairs. She talked to Fox News Digital, and she said, "We realize that the structural root of poverty is white supremacy, which relies on the exploitation and theft of black labor and other material resources. Reparations is a strategy that both acknowledges the centuries-old cause of our present inequities and moves money and power so that black communities can finally be made whole." Eric, imagine if I blamed me being poor on my French ancestors, or if I lived in New Orleans and I blamed it on the Canadians that moved to New Orleans from Canada and France. Like, it just seems to be like an illogical argument. I think there is a bit of room to be like, hey, they never paid us what they were supposed to. But to still say that you're affected from 400 years ago, and I guess you can say you don't have the money that comes from that land anymore, or you never got it. But you can't just be going around blaming 400 years ago for your current problems. And there's only in America does this argument still happen. Whereas if you're up here in Canada, and like I said, like 300 years ago, maybe the British weren't treating my French people very well, and you owe me money from some trade deal that went awry, and you didn't actually give me the money, so now I deserve it. I think people are going to be saying, like, what the hell are you talking about? How are we supposed to quantify this, that, and the other? And that's what these programs are essentially doing, is quantifying and putting together action plans of who should get the money and how much.
Yeah, but again, you're taking it as like not, right? It's just a weirdo money laundering, vote grabbing scheme. And I feel like we went for a long time. We went for about a decade and we didn't really hear about it. Maybe Barack Obama dealt with it. Maybe George Bush dealt with it. Like, skipped a lot of time to now be worried about it all over again. And this timing with this is, a little iffy time and time again, especially, it became super glaring during the virus. They're going to walk in lockstep. They're reading the same playbook. They get their messages from the same person, from the day they shut down to the day they implemented mask mandates to the day they had a hospital, and on and on and on. So what we have right now is California says, oh, we're going to study reparations, and then some city council in San Francisco says residents of San Francisco that can prove they were moved here between this year and this year, or this person deserve $5 million, all while New York is doing something very similar. This story, it's all just so predictable. Like, they get the talking point, ask for, I don't know, a couple days, it'll burn out and it'll come back in another month or so, 6 weeks. And all this is happening, by the way. She's I keep wanting to say Sheila Gunn Reid, different person. Sheila Jackson Lee, her hate speech violence thing, and thing, and meanwhile, Atlanta is burning again because BLM was shooting it out. We've been following the story, but it's pretty ironic that they talk nonstop about this white supremacy. Is that timed in with this as well? So I haven't been following the story. What's happening in Atlanta Saturday? A couple days that this has been going on. So it just seems a little that this is all happening. So the BLM protesters in Atlanta can also claim supremacy along with Sheila Jackson Lee, and that's all their justification for destroying cities, and it can never go the other way. You can never. Graphic people has been known to terrorize towns and burn stuff down, and maybe we should pay the victims. You know, their businesses burned down, their cars. They would never get that same attention. So it's just not a two-way street.
Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff they're doing here as well, besides moral and psychological healing and deeply spiritual work, they also watch the show called Atlanta. Now that you bring up Atlanta, that was part of their course, which is, I guess, a hip-hop scene show, dark comedy sort of show with
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover. Yeah. Is he Danny Glover's son?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Along
with the poverty and reparations, they touched on womanist theology, which you have to, and there it is. Analyze the show Atlanta drama comedy, or some call dramedy, about the hip hop scene in Georgia City. Here are some of the people that. Here's the funny part. So we're going to get into, before we go, about who is behind this, which of course is hilarious in itself, but it's called the Truth Telling Project, of course, is one of the organizations involved with it. And this TTP was established in 2014 in response to Michael Brown. So the whole hands up don't shoot thing that didn't actually happen spawned an entire organization that still exists almost a decade later, still taking funding, still taking donations, and also, of course, getting to run things about racism based on a lie. So this alleged grave injustice they think happened, they create a group, of course, collect donations for it. I'm assuming, don't sue me on that part, TTP. And then it turns out not to be true, so are we shutting this down? Oh no, we're 10 years on now of making money and, asking for reparations because the thing that we're based on was actually a fake injustice, but let's not touch on that. One of the other groups that I'm not sure you've heard of, have you ever heard of NCOBRA?
No.
The National Coalitions of Blacks for Reparations in America, which, obviously they sound like villains because Cobra and G.I. Joe is the villains. They're a pro-reparations group that advocates for, and this is pulled from their website, entire institutions and organizations to be established worldwide in order to issue reparations for all of the following. So they advocate for every country that has had black people or has black people to come up with reparations boards, a whole reparations industry where they have people, taking cases, deciding who's owed what and what was taken from them. And this is what they want. To issue reparations over the, quote, return of their seized and stolen land, that's one, the capital of their seized and stolen property and assets, and the value of their forced and coerced labor. So they're seeking that worldwide. And the rest of this group, they're hoping to meet with 100 congregations in total in 2023, and they're saying that they're well ahead of schedule because it's been January and first month and they've already met with 15 congregations. So you got people who invented a group after Hands Up Don't Shoot didn't happen involved. You've got a group of black nationalists who say reparations worldwide and we want to create a whole industry out of this. You've got a reverend, of course, and you've got people talking about womanhood theology and HBO shows as well, or Showtime or whatever it is. And this is what city budgets are going towards.
But how are we even talking about women now, right? Look, obviously these people twist themselves up into a pretzel. So woman was, now it's like part of this weirdo cultist religion. And on top of all this, it kind of ties into the reparations that the Biden administration is trying to you can fact DuckDuckGo or whatever, but he's trying to force localities like state and local government submit equity reports as part of a new housing and urban development like law or rule or something. So that's basically the same thing. Of the and like part of the article, they even said that it's not about apologizing, gaining the. It's all about money, basically. You could read the article. I forget exactly where it comes from, but it's on top of this. It's another like reparations thing, like where a local government is going to have to submit equity guidelines. Like, I mean, again, it's never a two-way street, right? Like they're real angry at this hockey guy pride stuff, but
right.
If they had Christian night, everybody wouldn't do that. It just
yeah. Let's talk about that a bit, because that is one of those weird things where it's like apparently you must agree to everything your organization agrees to. That's what these hockey journalists are the worst people ever. And I've grown up watching them and thinking that even before things were hyper politicized and everything, that these hockey reporters are so full of themselves and they will just poke and poke and poke, because Toronto Maple Leafs, biggest hockey team ever, I would argue, right, close to me, the reporters for this team were just always pestering the players every single day, asking the same questions. They ask them nicely to stop every single day, and they won't let up. And this happened with this guy. They melted
down, and he was.
His name is Sid Sixero. And if you watch Michael Knowles' reaction to this, he gets so much of it wrong. Sid Sixero used to be on a sports show. I grew up watching this guy. I actually interviewed him for my college broadcasting course. He was my interview for a project. So very disappointing. He had a great show.
So you guys all the way up to you guys are.
Yeah, he had a great show all the way up until this show he's on now, which is actually a morning news show. So it's called Breakfast Television, which is a really old show as well. And he's there with an Italian woman who I bet you didn't agree with what he was saying. But it just shows how far he's fallen. But he's not on a sports show anymore. But he's got a long history as a sports guy. And he was basically saying that it's the equivalent to people not coming out for Armed Forces Night. Now, I don't think he logically thought this through. Number one, if people want to defend their logic on Provorov, the hockey player's name, not coming out for this, then you would have to say, yes, if he doesn't want to come out for Armed Forces Night, maybe it's for praising Ukraine, then he shouldn't have to. I don't think anybody should have to. But is it the equivalent here, talking about people who sacrifice their lives, possibly, and die in a war somewhere? Is that the same as celebrating somebody's sexuality, their innate biology, if you should so put it that way? That's like saying I'm against brown people hair night, and that's the same as being against, Holocaust survivor night. It's not the same thing at all. But you should have the right to do and participate in anything you want. And they wouldn't say this if this was basketball. First of all, there's no way the NBA players are participating in anything that they don't want to participate in. There's not enough players in the league for that. You see what they do, and you see what they're allowed to get on their sneakers, on their sweatbands. They had the samurai ties for a couple of years. They got away with that. Have we seen what?
Have we seen it? MLB did it. I don't know if I know the NFL does like breast cancer, which is again the LGBT.
Scam, yeah.
Well, but their mob can right, like because anyways, would if the MLB and the NFL made headlines for their Pride nights, but I don't think we've seen an NBA Pride night. Would the NBA
no,
would the fans of
so.
think about the fans of the bro. The powers that be, the establishment, weirdo, creep personalities, they would have such a hard time trying to square that, because even the young watch watching Ja Morant and like these kids are like 20 years old or whatever, and they're flying, they're dunking all that. Even those young kids, probably mostly black or like some other demographics, but I mean, obviously white kids love basketball too, as I know you. But would they risk that demographic to push stuff onto the NBA? I don't know if that's worth the risk.
No, and here's why. NBA, the black guys aren't going to stand for any of this, and then you got to mix in of like South American guys and Eastern European guys who aren't going to stand for any of that. They'd just be like, why? Just like everybody else. MLB, Hispanic guys, country guys, they don't care about this. The MLB had like almost no kneeling at all because so many Hispanic guys that come from communist countries and very poor countries like the Dominican and stuff like that. They don't care about this. You even have people, and I watched a clip the other day where two soccer players, a South Korean guy and a French African guy, but from France, I believe who he was, they forget to kneel. They start playing and everybody else is kneeling. And I'm just like, well, this is because they come from countries where this has nothing to do with them. That's why the top thing on their mind when they start the game isn't, virtue signal, but it is for the English players. Just like this is for the Canadian players, Canadian American players, mostly in the NHL. And then you've got Finnish, Swedish, Russian, Czech, Slovakian, all these guys. But the thing about hockey players is they're the type of bro dudes that are just like, whatever, I'll put up with whatever you want as long as I get to play. They don't want to have any edgy opinions. They don't want to rock any boats. They just want to play hockey.
Though?
That's why I don't know.
Why
but
though?
I've known these guys all my life. All they care about is hockey because they
fight in hockey. They let them fight in hockey for something like stand up for themselves and be like, no, I don't want to do that.
But these guys don't care about anything other than playing. Just like they had their whole racist thing where one guy claimed that somebody was racist to him in the minor leagues 5-6 years ago, and it was a shitty coach. Of course that's going to happen, but people are going to make fun of you from being in the middle of nowhere in Canada too. People are going to make fun of you for everything. People in my friend's hockey league, house league hockey or beer league, whatever you want to call it, they try to kick them out of the games for swearing at each other. Like, this is just how hockey is. For some reason, they're so susceptible to cucking to things that they would rather say nothing and shut up and deal with the 30 seconds of uncomfortableness than actually be like, you know what, I am against this. And it took this Russian guy, of course, which makes him an easier target to be like, no, I don't want to do it. And then a coach who is a real hard-ass coach, if you're familiar with him, and they're like, did you ever think about sitting him for not doing this? And he's like, no, not for a second. Of course not. You're not going to sit one of your good players for this, just like you're not going to sacrifice your team for Colin Kaepernick. Like this isn't... he's not making a statement. He's trying to not be included in a statement. If you want to say that Colin Kaepernick's not trying to be included in what the national anthem stands for, then that's fine. But you also can't suck on one hand, but also somebody saying that it's not like... Nobody said fine the San Francisco 49ers, at least I don't think, $1 million for this like that guy did. It's deal with the individual. And if you want to say, which is what the hockey media says, is that kick him out, kick him off the team, they're going to do it only because it's stuff that they disagree with. Run a Donald Trump night if he was president. Run a Donald Trump celebration night or like the history of presidents and see how many people don't come out for that. Either it's going to be none or one guy, and then you're going to be like, you know what, good for him. He's standing up against bigotry and against hate. But this one guy doesn't do it, and they think it's one shoe fits all, even though if they had that same shoe, they wouldn't do it. And you know they wouldn't do it. And of course you can't sit here and be like, I know for a fact, but when was the last time you saw somebody stand up for somebody standing for what would be considered like traditional values? It just doesn't happen. Not in the media anyways. So for them to be like, find this guy $1 million, oh, he's going to cost them money, then you're going to have to be consistent for that on all things. That's a good point too, but what's I thought about that.
Sold out everything.
What's to stop somebody who's rich just being like, I'm going to buy 100,000 jerseys or something, or 50,000 jerseys to make a point? I mean, that could happen too, but that's obviously my conspiracy, as Eric says. Let me put on my tinfoil hat.
Well, if that
Go
were the
ahead.
case, why wouldn't he buy the extra smalls? Because I didn't do
That's fair.
I didn't do a deep dive into it, but I'm pretty sure they also allow, except for extra. So it's just a millionaire, a billionaire, whatever.
The billionaires, the trillionaires. Bernie Sanders
yeah.
bought them.
Then he would have just bought all of them, I would think.
That's
but it's probably
fair.
like, I mean,
good point.
But no, but whatever happened to just having the choice, bro? Like, it's no, when it comes to, you know, dumping your baby, oh, we got a choice. When it comes to, oh, you get a choice. But now when this guy's like, nah, it's not really for me. You don't have a choice. Give me a break. And for the record, this doesn't really have anything to do with this, but did you know, I know this is old, Kyrie's Instagram was suspended.
No, I did not.
I mean,
did you know Kyrie is still like number 15 in jersey sales or number 10? He's at the bottom of a list I read.
Doesn't sound too bad. 10 or 15 out of hundreds of NBA players?
Yeah, he's still selling lots of jerseys.
Yeah, well, I mean, before they tried to, you know, burn him at the stake, Kyrie NBA players that we've seen in the past decade. Like, he's not a
and I just
he's not, you know, he's no Brian Scalabrine.
Hey, whoa, Scalabrine used to do a show where he would let people try to come off the street and beat him for like 10 grand or something.
I know.
He always won. The thing is, though, like, who in hockey, the reason why this guy's jersey sells out is because who in hockey cares about this? It's like, no, the reason Kaepernick was such a big deal is because people who watch football care about America. No, hockey fans don't actually care about, like, the Rainbow Coalition, and you can say it's a celebration of equal rights, but we all know it's not. Like, you don't just get up there and celebrate, like, the women's right to vote at once a year. This isn't a celebration of gay rights that they already have. This is, like, pay the piper sort of shit, and it's like, pledge your allegiance to the flag, essentially. So the people who pledged their allegiance to the LGBT flag got offended, just like the people who got pledged allegiance to the American flag and stand for the national anthem got offended. That's what this is. This isn't he's doing a grave injustice and disrespecting people. It's like people got upset because you didn't pray to their flag, and just so happens that those people aren't actual sports fans. So, like, what are you guys doing? That's why the NHL's not doing anything. That's why the team didn't bench him, because nobody actually cares about this except for the losers in sports media. And, you know, I'm not as much on Canadian stuff anymore, but and I don't have a Canadian show anymore. But Sid Sixero, I would happily go in and debate him on this and tell him, like, both from a logical standpoint, he's wrong, or at the very least, he needs to be consistent, and from a PR and financial standpoint, where it comes to fans wanting stuff and fans caring about stuff, absolutely no fewer than 99% of people don't care about this. And you can find the sports journalist which cares about it 75 to 85% of the time, because even the most veteran sports analysts like himself, he's not a young guy. I think he's in his mid 40s at this point, or older, I don't know. And then older men all had a problem with this. Oh, who does he think he is? Like, they acted like he went out there and burned the gay flag when he actually just sat inside. But Brittany Griner doesn't want to come out for the national anthem. Then it's amazing they're standing up. Colin Kaepernick is worst backup quarterback there is on in his division and everything, and he's amazing. Even though, like, we could go on for another hour here about how he's trash, but these people are heroes. You get him a Nike deal, exchange her for the arms dealer. Oh, this guy's Russian and he's not coming out for the gay flag. We'll crucify him. No pun intended.
Well, the announcer guy they were talking about, the veteran announcer guy, or not announcer, but sports
an analyst,
analyst, commentator, whatever. It almost felt like he was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna get out ahead of this one, and I'm gonna really pay my dues to the machine, and I'm gonna almost apply for a new job, or he wanted to go to a movie, or like, I'm gonna jump on this sword, like Cory Booker in his like Spartacus moment, like for this righteous moment. Like, dude.
Well, what you have to
calm down.
understand
Nobody's
is
really tripping out.
he does that whenever he's got like he cuts a promo like that all the time. That's what has made him popular over the years. So think of him more of a Stephen A. Smith type, where he's going to be that animated on a subject no matter how he feels about it. So that's his way of delivering one of his promos, as you would say in the wrestling game. So sometimes he's right about stuff, and I agree with him then, and sometimes he's very wrong. He's right more often than Piers Morgan, I'll give him that, but on this he's very wrong. But the fact that he's like that animated, that's how he is whenever he's making his point. He always looks at the camera and he'll say, if this person wants to do that, then I got news for you. Blah, 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 blah. That's what he's made his career about. So it's weird that it's coming on a morning television show that's mostly watched by like old white women who live in the city. But this is where he chose to get the check now. He left his best friend Tim to do his own show. It used to be called Tim and Sid. Now it's Tim and Friends. Sad story, but this is who's cutting his checks now.
One question I had with the MLB, last point here, is that it almost the organization, the leagues themselves aren't even. It's almost stuff, but that money isn't even their bottom line. Like they answer to somebody. These people who throw a fit when an MLB guy, not an NHL, but an MLB guy doesn't want to wear the pride patches or whatever, and it's like, wait, so have that many like LGQ, RS, barbecue, BBQ, whatever, like your base is not that at all, and they know that. They're not stupid. 65% of our fans are gay. They know that. Maybe it's just a publicity thing on them too. Like, okay, well, all news is good news.
Oh, for sure it is.
No, it's just bizarre. It's just so bizarre.
And something my girl pointed out is, because I teach her about sports every time I watch them, is it's interesting that's happening in Philadelphia too, because Philadelphia, just like in other sports, is known for a long time for having rowdy fans and even rowdier team. They used to be called the Broad Street Bullies in the 70s for fighting everybody. They got the Russians to go home by being too violent with them in the famous Russian series that they played in. They used to have American teams play the Russian team, and they ran them out of town. So like they do this in one of the most violent fan bases. Like Philadelphia Eagles fans beat up opposing team fans, like that sort of stuff.
Sonny has
crazy fans,
like a whole running joke about how the crazy fans are. Yeah.
Exactly, and then so they do this in this city, and then it's always to make a point. They got to go after the most masculine men. They got to go after the most violent team. They got to take down. They got to cut the snake off at the head if they hope to alphabetize the alphabetizers, whatever that means. UnAuthorizedOpinions.com, UOPod.com. Eric is Report and Opine on IG, and I'm Andrew Does. Or you can go to AndrewSaysTV.com. You can follow us both on YouTube. Thanks for watching on Getter, on YouTube, on Twitter. Shout out Twitch Guy. And, of course, listening on Spotify, Apple, and Google, where we are ranking in Europe. Can't stop us now. We've got so much ahead of us, episode 94 or something. What are we going to do for our 100th episode, Eric? Maybe we'll be together at that point. I don't mean in a relationship, but I mean in the same place. Let's see. Next week's 29th, so are we on 94? Is that what episode we're on?
I believe so.
Yeah, so next week is the 29th. That'd be 95. March 5th, 96. Or sorry, February 5th, 96, 12th, 97, 19th, 98, 26, beginning of March. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to finagle it or something, but who knows?
We need to do like a countdown or figure it out.
Yeah.
Also, buy the book, of course.
Right. Shout out comments section, guy talking about air conditioning and the Provorov jerseys, and shout out Getter family for everybody watching on there. We will see you at a later date.
Turn it up, Jordan.